Hi friends, and welcome back to Violin Teacher YouTube channel. And today we're going to continue with Lesson 4 of the Bériot Violin Method. Lesson 4 is about sustained notes and what I call articulation. So we'll get more into this, and I'm going to turn the camera down, and here we go. Hi friends, and thank you for joining me at Violin Teacher YouTube channel. So Lesson 4 of the Bériot is going into some new and very interesting technique with the bowing. So let's read what he has to say at the top of the page. Sustained tones. So before beginning the scales, this is what he says at the top of the page. Before beginning the scales, the pupil's attention must be directed to a fault against which he should constantly be on his guard. Right, so what's that fault? At the termination of the stroke, in sustained tones, he is generally affected with a nervous impulse to begin the new stroke before the completion of the preceding one. So that's really, really important. I have seen this with people who are self-taught and beginners, that they don't take time to stop the bow and listen to the end of the bow stroke. So Bériot has given us a drawing of both the defective bowing and the proper bowing. And if you look in your book, which you can download through a link in my description, if you look at this, this is the defective bowing, and underneath he's drawn a line which seems to indicate an increase of some sort. Also, let's define these terms that he's using in this picture. So let me turn it around so I can read it. So if you see this part right here, it says nut. That means frog. Okay, so we're going to start this D, down bow, and we're going to start it at the frog and end it at the point, which is the tip. And at this point, at this moment, or I should say, in the bow stroke right here, he has increased. It looks like a crescendo actually, doesn't it? And I think this is a weight into the string indicator. Notice that on the next example, it's exactly the opposite. This fault can be remedied. He says this above the second example, which is the correct way. This fault can be remedied by slightly accentuating the beginning of the stroke and by diminishing its speed toward the termination of the tone. Okay, so what he's telling you in the first one, this is what the interpretation of this bowing, this drawing is telling me. And you must listen very carefully. At the beginning of my bow stroke, there's no articulation at all. It's just a beginning of sound, isn't it? I go to the point, and now I have more weight, and I have sort of like a little creaking sound, right? So Bériot has interpreted that very common thing that beginners do with an thinking that that is an impulse to proceed to the next, to the up bow, to the next bowing. And the reason I believe that he has made this interpretation is because that's just exactly what beginners do. They don't listen to the actual beginning or ending of their bow stroke. They simply move the bow down or up and don't listen to the beginning or the end. In fact, they don't even stop in between the notes to listen to the end of the previous note. So they get that. Sometimes they get a creak, sometimes they don't get a stop, and they don't have any definition to the sound. It's just fuzzy bowing. And I make a point, if you will check right here, if you're a beginner and if you want to work on some easy songs from Suzuki Book 1, I give you tips on that, and the purpose all through the book is to teach you how to stop the bow. So anyone can put the bow on the string and move it without much thought. But can you put your thinking into what it sounds like right before the note, at the beginning of the note, and at the end of the note? Stop the bow at the end of the note and see and hear what it sounds like at the end. So lots of talking for that. It takes a lot of practice, but just start with open string practice and do it. You don't even have to play a whole note, 4 counts note. Just start the note with a little bit of a articulated sound. So we're going to put the weight at the beginning of the bow stroke, just like he suggested, slightly accentuating the beginning of the bow stroke and diminishing the speed, which is what you use to accentuate. Little speed, little weight. And get a nice crisp beginning to your bow stroke. And you need to do that both on the down bow and the up bow. Now, what happens if you practice that, you may end up getting a good sound at the beginning, or say maybe only on the down bows, but not a good beginning of your up bows. So you got to listen to both of them. But then you also may have a problem with the ending of the bow stroke. So you don't want that cramped, pinched sound at the end. At the end, you want the end of the bow stroke, you want a nice open-ended sound. So my professor used to call it an open-ended staccato. So the staccato will indicate that we're going to stop our bows, right? And the staccato will begin with a K sound, which we achieve with weight and speed. As soon as you begin the bow stroke, you slow that down and sustain the note. At the end of the bow stroke, you simply stop the bow with no weight and no speed. Now you have to do it from the tip of the bow. Alright, so that's something really worth practicing. So moving on now, we are going to use that skill in the next 4 lines on this page. Let's read what Bériot says before we play on. To acquire pure tone, it is necessary to compare the note produced with the open strings. The notes D, A, and E are therefore repeated in the next exercise, so that playing one with the 4th finger and the other with the open string, faulty intonation can always be rectified or corrected. So if you scan the next line of music, you will see that it is mostly whole notes, right? We're looking at this line now. Alright, so we've got starting on G, then 1, all these are whole notes, 4 counts, 3, and then here suddenly half notes, 2 half notes in a measure, both of them D. One is played with 4th finger on the G, and one of them is played with an open D string. So when you play the 4th finger, you want to really try to get your finger a whole step from the 3, and then listen to the D and see if you did it just right. And then we're going to continue on the D and go up in whole notes, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then 4th finger is going to be tested by the open A, and then we play B, and then we end it on C. Now also, there's one other thing that I can point out to you before we begin the line that I just showed you, and that is the words or the phrase halftone. So you may have heard me refer to half steps and whole steps, and in this exercise Bériot has given us the words halftone between the second and third fingers on G string. So let's look at how they sit on the G string. And a halftone means that the tips touch, all right? And a whole tone would mean that they are a whole step away from each other. So all the fingers are a whole step away, except 2 and 3 on G. On D, same pattern, okay? 2 and 3 are going to be a half tone apart, and he gives us this same signal, abbreviated H period, T period, above the staff for that finger pattern, second and third finger. Okay, so let's look at what happens on the A string. Now the halftone is marked between 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 will have tips touching, and 3 will be a whole step away. Okay, and if you will look at the next line, which we didn't scan, did we? But if you will look at the next line, you will see that HT is also over 1 and 2 on the E string. So on a second look at this exercise, and looking at the end of the lines of the music, notice that we don't have double bar lines to indicate the end of the exercise until the third line. So this first exercise is 3 lines long. So we had better scan those lines too, right? So let's scan them now. Line 2 takes us up on the E string. Notice that we have, in the first measure, we have third finger on A, then we have a 4 on A, which should match the open E, and these are half steps. Then we have 1 whole note. Let's see if I can point to it. Then second finger, and here's our halftone reminder, so tips should touch here. 3, 4, and then we're going to descend the scale. And this is actually a scale, and we can tell that now. Alright, second finger, halftone marked, half notes, then on D, here we go all the way back, down on G with our halftones marked. So Bériot is telling us, in G major by the way, where the halftones are, so pay attention to that as we go. And also let's try to create a nice crisp beginning to our tone on both down bows and up bows, and no pinched sounds at the ends of our bow strokes, and let's stop between so that we have room and to listen to what's happening at the end of our bow strokes. Okay, get your music ready. Starting on G string with 4 beats. Remember that those notes that are not colored in and have no stem are 4-beat notes, whole notes. And it just occurred to me to tell you one other thing about half notes, and that is a lot of times people have a little trouble getting these tips to touch. Depending on the size of your fingertips, you know, you may not have to really make them touch literally, but they're going to be close, okay? So if you have really thin fingers, slender fingers, then maybe they won't exactly touch. But if you're having trouble, like if your fingers are kind of smushed together a little bit, then there's no way that you can get those tips together. Now, so here's what I tell my students. Knuckles apart, tips together. And I would like you to challenge yourself to try to get both knuckles touching and tips touching. See what happens when knuckles touch? Tips can't touch. especially first and second finger. Putting the knuckles together makes the tips of the fingers go apart. So get the knuckles apart so that the tips, especially second fingers, can get really low down there and close to the first finger. Alright, that's your bonus tip for the day. There may be more. Here we go. At this pace, 1, 2, 3, play. G1. That was better. Half step. Whole step 4. It's okay if 1 lifts up a little. Whole note 1 on D. Ready, go. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Half step 3. 2, 3, 4. Whole step 4. Match your pitches. 1 on A. Low 2. Touching tips. 2, 3, 4. Line 2. 2, 3, 4. Set the 4 a whole step away. 1 on E. 2. Tips touching. Now third finger, whole step away. 4, whole step away. If you held your 3, you're ready to play. 2 is low. 2, 3, 4. E then 4. A little brief stop in between the string crossing is okay. Let's do that again. Third finger, 1, 2, 3, 4. Low 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, open A to 4, half notes. Now, high 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, open D to 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Get that elbow under, high 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, open G. 2, 3, 4. No crispy critters on the ends of our notes. Good. So my suggestion is that you practice this. This is a G scale, and it actually adds on the top. It adds the third and fourth fingers. So that's covering all the notes that we can play in first position. Good. Looking at the last line on this page, I would like to just point out that we have skipping fingers now, and we have open half notes, second finger on G, open D, third finger on D, first finger on D, on A, third finger on A, second finger low on E, fourth finger on E, back to second finger. Then we're going to just do the same notes we just played in reverse. So this is a good place to stop the video and scan the music. It's all half notes, so you shouldn't have any problem with rhythms, but you do have skipping fingers. So I'll do it once with you, and I'll call out the notes. Here we go. G string, ready, go. 2, that's a whole step That's a high 2, I mean. Okay, let's try it again. Get a good crisp beginning to your sound. Open D. Third finger up bow. First finger A. Third finger A. 2 low on E. 4, hold the 2. 2 is back. 3 on A. 1 on A. Third finger. Open D. Second finger high. Now this is a great little exercise to memorize, actually. Well, this is a G arpeggio, G major arpeggio. So first of all, you should know that. An arpeggio is a broken chord. So you don't play all the notes at once. You play them all like one after the other. So this is a G major arpeggio, and the reason that this is really good is because it contains a lot of notes that should be ringing. So if you're listening for good intonation, your notes, especially all the third fingers that you play in this should ring and match an open string. And this is just like the tonalization that you can find in the beginning of Dr. Suzuki's Suzuki Method for Violin. Book 2, I think, it is in the front of that. And in that book, it also has the minor, G minor one too. Let's scan this and see what notes should ring. Obviously, open strings will ring. So the first note would ring. The second note is a B. We don't have any open Bs, so that won't ring, but you still want to try to get it perfectly in tune. And you know, if you set your fingers on an, like a 3 on D, that's a G, so it should ring, but it won't ring unless you set it precisely in the right spot. Exactly, perfectly in tune, and then it will ring, but otherwise it will not ring. So listen for that ringing quality as you play these notes. In fact, I would suggest maybe playing 4 or 2 of each of these notes. So 3 on D will ring, open D will ring, 1 on A is a B, so that's not going to ring. 3 on A is a D, that will ring. 2 on E is a G, that should ring. 4 on E is a B, that will not ring. Okay, and then we reverse. Now, you thought we were done, didn't you? But we're not. This, if you'll turn the page, you'll see that there is, before the 5th lesson, there is a little song with duet part that he gives us. So I'm going to play this with you, but let's first look at what we have here. We have an air with the staff which is connected. I just want to point that out to you. An air andante, which means walking, about walking speed. And notice that we have a treble clef both here and here. So this is the duet part. And this is tying these staffs together. So they should be played by treble instruments all the way to the double bar. Okay? So I'm going to help you play the top line, and let's just look at it. Now notice that if we just scan this, we have all half notes. We also have, looks like a lot of focus in the middle of the staff. So we're not going to be playing any high notes on E string or any low notes on G string. So that's a plus maybe for just getting started reading. No fancy rhythms and no extreme heights or depths of the melodic line. So thank you to Bériot, and I thank him almost every video, don't I? Okay, it's in the key of G, which we just practiced. And one other thing I want to show you is that he gives you the fingering of the first note, but not the second note. Now look at that. He gives you the first finger for the first note. Then the second note, he doesn't give it to you. But if you will look and compare these two notes, you'll see they're the same note. It happens in this measure and in this measure. And then here we have a note, but then we have 2 beats rest on a half rest right here. So it looks like this is a pattern that continues all the way through. 2 notes of the same pitch, the first one having the fingering over it, except right here, you want to watch, there looks like some movement right here. So watch for that. Okay, so check it out and then we'll start when you're ready. You can stop the video and review it or look at it or play through it, and then I'm going to try to just play it with you. One, two, ready, play. One, two, ready, play. Very simple. And if you want to try to play this one with me, I'll do the duet part. I'll say ready, go. And I want you to play the top line with me. All right, so let's try it. 1, 2, ready, play. how did our duet go? Let me know in the comments section. Did you do a good job on lesson 4? Give us a thumbs up, and I'll see you in lesson 5.